What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to DNS Fabrication, and today we're keeping up with the Overland series and we're working again on my Toyota 4Runner. We're actually underneath my 270 awning that I put on the 4Runner that I use for camping, and today our goal is to try to toughen this thing up because it's just a cheaper, lower cost awning from Princess Auto or Harbour Freight for those of you in the States, and it's a little bit flimsy. The brackets are not the best, so our goal is to plasma cut some CNC brackets for this awning to give us a better mounting location while letting us open up the hatch on the 4Runner with a 270 awning. As I mentioned, this awning was from Princess Auto, which is the Canadian equivalent of Harbour Freight up here in Canada, and honestly I've really liked it. I think I paid something like $300 for this awning, and for a 270 awning out of the box, that's a fantastic deal. The only downside, as we talked about, are these mounts. So they're not implemented very well. They're really thin steel, actually quite flimsy, not a lot of gusseting, and they rotate on the crossbars of the roof rack. And then unfortunately with 4Runners that have a hatch that open the rear, you need to make sure the mount for the awning is high enough to clear the hatch. Here, let me open it and show you. So to properly use the rear hatch, if you want to go through the back of the 4Runner, this awning has to go significantly higher than the crossbars or the rails on your roof. You can see how much movement we get from this mount just by me pushing on it, and we want that to be rock solid. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to crawl up onto the passenger side of the 4Runner and I'll explain what I'm thinking for the type of mount I'm going to make. Then we'll design this up in SolidWorks and we'll cut it on the CNC plasma table. So when looking at the other side with the awning attached and the stock mounts, I've determined that the vertical height of mounting is going to have to be at least 9 inches. So what I had in mind is to make a flat bracket on the bottom to mount to both the cross rail and the crossbar, and then we'll vertically extend this up 9 inches with a couple gussets, drill the holes, and be ready to go. Watching carefully, you probably noticed that this is some very heavy-duty steel, and you were right. This is 1/4 inch mild steel and it's checker plate, and the reason I'm using this is because I don't want to cut into my 3/16 plate, which is probably better suited for this job. Only reason is I'm actually not going to be using this for too long, so I'm hoping this is a stopgap up to the point where I build myself an aluminum roof rack for the 4Runner, and I'll be using aluminum extrusions with some 1/4 inch aluminum side plates, and these will move from a U-bolt style mount into a T-nut within that aluminum extrusion. the mounts painted. I went with a gloss black on these, nothing too fancy. But we're very close to assembling the awning here. I ended up running with U-bolts. This is my strategy for putting onto the roof rails. So I'll just run this around the roof rail as well as a crossbar. And then these will just thread through like this. Throw some nuts on top and we'll be good to go. So that's my next step. We're gonna run onto the 4Runner. We'll pull the old awning mounts off. We'll assemble these onto the roof of the 4Runner and then we'll toss on the new awning. We'll go for a cruise, try to find an open area, and we'll open up the awning and test it out to see how it's compared to with the previous older mounts. Take a look at these old mounts. Now these look flimsy. They're already bent. There's a huge cantilever. These are no good, and we do not need these anymore either. We have got the final ones installed up here with 1/4-inch steel, and this thing is rigid. Holding onto this aluminum extrusion, I can shake the 4Runner without that moving. That's exactly what we're looking for. So that way we get no flex in the awning itself, because previously that made everything else very sketchy when setting it up. I was really worried about breaking it, as well as busting one of these mounts. So now we have no concerns with this. We can go find a spot to open it up and really see the impacts of how those sturdy mounts affect opening and setting up the awning. As I was opening this up, I realized I wanted to show you guys another area of improvement for this mount. Although I did stiffen up the majority of the awning, the part where it actually opens up all the way around, we see significant flex in this portion. And I think I probably will do another episode on this awning where we try to make it freestanding as well as beef up this mount. The part that can be improved to make this freestanding is this section right here. So you can see that there's no arm on this front corner of the awning. You have to manually put in a secondary arm that just slides into a slot and then has a leg to prop up this corner. So what I'd really like to do in a future episode is have a second hinge that would open up the arm for this corner so that this awning could actually be freestanding without any legs, obviously with very minor weight. It can be a bit of a hassle to set this thing up with one person, so that's why I really want to make this freestanding. After messing around with this thing quite a bit, I finally got it up. It's not perfect, like I said. It definitely needs another episode of improvements, and that's where we'll put the extra hinge on. But once it's up, it is awesome. It gives you so much cover underneath the 4Runner. It extends past the roof so you can open the doors up and not get any rain falling in on the sills. And then also with this higher mount for the 270, I can open up the rear hatch and we have full clearance underneath the awning. So you probably noticed I only have 2 U-bolts per mount, and that's just because I couldn't find any other ones at this time. So I am just running with 2, but it's pretty rigid even with those 2. I also have to lop the end of these off with the cutoff wheel, so I'll make sure I do that before heading out. Otherwise, I think this about wraps it up for this episode. I'm pretty happy with the improvements that we made to this awning. We're making a cheap $300 awning fairly comparable to something that's worth about $1,000. And we have about one more episode of improvements to do to really make it a top competitor with those other awnings. I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. And if you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up and any comments definitely helps us out. We'll see you guys next week.